Are you and your family looking for your next adventure? Well, look no further than the Broville Museum of Minecraft History. Wander through the exhibits packed with rare artifacts, legendary builds, and stories from every version of the game. See the tools that shaped the world, the mobs that made us scream, and the moments that became history. And of course, our crown exhibit, the world's slowest mod developer. Hold on, excuse me? What did you just say? Oh yeah, you're just the slowest mod developer ever. It's been like 2 months since you last posted a video. That's not true. I've done some live streams. Yeah, but we both know those don't really count, do they? Okay, well, I had a really good excuse. Does that excuse start with a C and end with Lash Royale? Oh, hang on, were you saying something? Exactly what I thought. You can't fool me. Okay, but that's not the only thing that I've been doing, all right? So let's hear it. Why'd you take so long with this update? Well, I guess if you really want to find out, you're gonna have to watch the video. So stay tuned. Who is he talking to? Hello everybody, welcome back to another devlog for the Mine Hero add-on, an add-on for Palladium that adds all of the quirks into Minecraft. How'd you guys like that little intro, by the way? I thought it was kind of fun. Anyway, you're probably here to answer that very question of why did this take so long to come out? It's been about 2 months, maybe longer, since I actually did a real video, and the reason for that is pretty simple. No, it's not because I've been playing Clash Royale this whole time. Essentially what I've been doing is reworking the entire mod. All of the quirks got changes, almost all of them got reworks, and a lot of the backend systems got completely changed. Pretty much I've taken what used to be just an add-on, and I've split a lot of the different functionalities and features into its own library mod. There were a couple of reasons why I did this. The first was to make a more performant add-on. See, if I have access to Java, I can do a lot more complicated things than I could with just Cube.js, which is what Palladium normally uses. I'll go over all of the things that I'm able to do, but pretty much anything that a real Minecraft mod can do, I can now do. I've also figured out how to extend a lot of things to Cube.js as well, which means that a lot of the stuff that I do, you guys can do as well when you're creating your own quirks for this add-on. So without further ado, let's just step into all of the changes that have been made, all of the quirk things, you know, all of this stuff. There's a lot of it, so this is going to be a long video. Oh, and before I do that, I do have 2 things I want to tell you. The first thing is I'm going to be setting a subscriber goal. Now, I haven't done these in quite a while, but because YouTube hasn't seen a video from me in a while, I fear that they may not like my channel as much anymore. So I was thinking a subscriber goal would be kind of fun and help also boost the algorithm for this video. What am I setting the goal to, you may be asking? Well, I want to set it to 10,000 subscribers. I'm not going to say if because I think you guys can do it, but when we hit 10,000 subscribers, that is when I will officially release whatever state the mod is in onto CurseForge and Modrinth. This will be a beta release, so obviously it won't be completely finished, but everything that has been tested up to that point will be playable for everyone. So make sure you hit the subscribe button now, and don't worry, I'll remind you to do it later. The second announcement I have is just that there's going to be another announcement somewhere in the middle of this video, so make sure you watch the whole thing so you can hear it. I promise you're going to like it. Totally trying to get the watch time up with that one. And that's enough announcements out of me. Let's get into all of the changes that I've made. If we look at the wall of signs here, we can see there has been so many changes, and that is true. There's been a lot of them, and it's kind of hard to go over all of them, so I'm just going to go over some of the high-level stuff, and then we'll go through all of the quirks, which I know you're really excited to probably see the quirks. I will have timestamps in the description. The first thing I'll talk about is the new command set. So there are 3 of them, the /bql, /body, and /bql config. I'll talk about these 2 later, but the main one that you'll need to know is /bql. What this allows you to do is control a lot of different things for the mod. It primarily focuses on your stamina. So if I use the BQL bandit helps and debug like this, then we can see there's that stamina status that I had before. You can see all of my information about the current exhaustion level, all that stuff. That's all the same. Now, however, we have get and we have set. So if we use the set, we can set our current, our exhaustion level, our max stamina, the plus ultra status, and we can do the upgrade points, which is one that I'll definitely want to do. I can just set them to 100 real quick, and that's how we're going to control that. So again, we'll talk about the body and BQL config commands later, but there is also a new game rule that I added. It's called Creative Stamina Bypass. Now this can be either true or false, and what it does is it prevents players in creative mode from actually using stamina. So for testing purposes, it just kind of makes sense that you can use any power you want in creative. So that game rule you can flick on and off in order to help balance that out. The next really big change is the config system, and building upon that, there's something that I have called dynamic configs. I can talk about how I use them later when I'm talking about the quirks, but the gist of it is that now, because I have a library, I can have an actual config file. So let's actually take a look at what the config file looks like right now. So this is the file. It's called bqlcommon.toml, and it's found directly inside of your config folder. And we have a lot of different things we can change. For example, with the body system here, we have variables for damage stage percentages, max damage, things like that. The stamina system is now completely configurable, so you can change at what level you become exhausted, the multipliers for how much experience you get or don't get while exhausted, all of the regeneration cooldowns, the chance that you gain stamina by using it. All these things are now completely configurable for your experience. There's also some other quirk related things like the creation shop down here, but this is the main file right now. And that's cool, but it's not the coolest thing because there are these dynamic configs. So what I've done is I've made it possible for developers using my library to easily add in configuration values for anything they want related to their quirks. Normally, Cube.js is not able to actually access config files correctly due to it not having the correct file permissions. However, because I switched over to a library mod, I'm now able to extend the config-related options out to you guys. When we start talking about the quirks, I can talk about how the dynamic configs are used, but I'll also do a video later explaining how to develop with my add-on. All you really need to know is that it allows developers to really give you full control over everything about the quirks. So no longer do you have to stick with the defaults for everything. You can make it pretty much any way you want. Another major change that came with the refactor was that I removed a lot of the scoreboards. So scoreboards in Palladium, if you don't know, are used to track a lot of different things. Before I was using it to track stamina, the damage of each body part, tower levels. Basically, you're using it to track anything that you need to keep persistent between when the player logs in and logs out, and to do with like charging abilities and all that sort of stuff. Using a lot of scoreboards and all of the commands to control them is not only confusing for developers when working with them, but it's also a little damaging on the performance for the mod. So I removed a lot of them in place of forge capabilities, which I don't expect normal people to really know what those are, but pretty much it's just a more efficient and optimized way of accessing stored data. And also, without all of these scoreboards, it makes it a whole lot easier to understand what is happening in the code. There was also significant changes to the stamina and the body system. For the stamina system in particular, there was a lot of quality of life tweaks, and as I said before, I changed the reliance on scoreboards, so it no longer requires any of those, and it's completely controlled using the /bql command that I showed you before, and there's no scoreboard at all. Which is really good. The body system improvements, though, are way different than what they were before. Before, the purpose of the body system was just to track the damage of each body part. That's about 8 different scoreboards to keep track of. However, I've kind of changed that around a little bit, and while I was at it, I gave it a lot more functionality. This comes to the /body command that I talked about before. If we use /body, we have a lot of different options to go over. The first one is just debug, and if I run this, we can see all of the information about our current body parts. Here, it shows the current damage of each item and the maximum damage that it can take. Here's the current state, and here's a few other values that you don't really need to know. This shows you how everything is kind of tracked, and it's all in nice one place. So if I say wanted to damage my arm, if I do, let's just do like 25 damage. There's no visual change yet, but if we go ahead and check the debug, we can see that the right arm is up to 25 damage, and that's still marked as healthy. The reason there's no visual damage yet is because the damage level needs to be a little higher. So let's set it up to 50, and we can see there the arm now renders that it is a little busted. And if we check the debug, we can see the state here has changed to sprained instead of healthy. If we set this up to, I think, 80, there we go. That's actually broken, I believe. So let's check this. Yep, there we go, broken. And the arm itself is very red. If we set it to max, basically filling out the total damage, that's when we actually lose the arm and it just disappears. And if I switch to the first person, we can see my hand is actually switched now. So before it was just visual, but now it's the case that your main arm will change depending on which arm is broken. So that's already a nice little quality of life feature. In order to heal the body parts, there's only one command to do so currently, and that is a body heal, and you just do all, and that will reset all of the damage for every body part that you have. And again, this is all done without a single scoreboard, meaning it should be a lot more performant when it comes to having a lot of different quirks and a lot of different players on at the same time. And while I was doing this rework, switching it to the library, I decided that it would actually be kind of cool and pretty useful if you could store more than just damage inside of each body part. And so that's exactly what I did. Now, to be transparent for those who actually use Palladium, I did think this was kind of a unique idea, and that was before I actually understood what Palladium properties were. So you're going to see a few similarities to those properties, but this is just a different way to do things. So if we use the body command again and do set this time, we have a few options. We have damage, which we just used. We have float, status, and string. These are 3 different variables that we can now store inside of the body. So for example, if I wanted to store, say, a float or a number inside of the right arm, I can do that. We can just give it a key. So we'll just say the test value, and we can give it a value of 2. So now inside of my right arm, or attached to my right arm, you could say, there's a value that's set to 2. In order to get this, I just have to simply switch this set to a get, and we can run it again, and there we go. It's set to 2. So you may be thinking, oh, well, that's not very great. You just stored a number inside of a body part. What's the point of that? Well, if we use Powerstock over there as an example, before I was storing the power that you had stored up inside of a scoreboard. The problem with this is, again, scoreboards are kind of slow, and it takes a lot more work in order to access the different values for them. So I replaced it by storing it inside of the chest. So there's a value inside of the chest that stores a float, and that float is corresponding to how much power you have access to. Not only is this more efficient to access, but I've also added in a bunch of custom conditions into Palladium in order to make accessing and checking that value really easily. And these conditions allow me to do things like give players specific powers once they meet a threshold. And better yet, it allows me to do the same thing with the damage, so I can say disable some powers if their arm is missing. That's really useful for quirks like Decay, which should only work if you have arms, and now if you lose them, it's not going to work. And that's just one example of the body system. There's a lot of different ways you can use this, and I'm designing it to be as versatile as possible. Also, expect there to be 1 or 2 videos about how to use it if you're creating your own add-on. And I think that's about all I'm going to say about the body system here, the stamina changes, all of these changes here. So it looks only like 6 signs, but trust me, a lot of it took a long time to do. Rest assured, though, that all of these changes have made the add-on a lot better and all of the quirks a lot better as well. And speaking of quirks, let's actually start talking about them. Are you subscribed yet, by the way? Oh, you're not going to subscribe until I show you the quirks? Okay, I got you. Welcome to the Wall of Quirks, where I show you all of the quirks that are currently in the mod functioning. Right now there's only 5, which that's kind of sad, I know. But now that I'm not reworking the entire mod, I'll have a lot more time to actually add more quirks in. But yes, we have 1 new quirk, and these 4 quirks all have had at least 1 change, if not getting completely reworked. So let me real quick summarize what happened with all of these. Creation got a huge facelift and is now looking better than ever and can now do a lot more items than before. Smokescreen now has all of its textures created, and there's been a few fixes to some of the abilities. This brand new quirk is one that you're going to see. Decay has been completely reworked and now looks better than ever. And Powerstock is no longer in a beta state. It's an actual fully usable power now. There's been a lot of changes here, but I think the first one we're going to start with is creation, so I can show you how nice it looks. And spoiler alert, one of my texture artists, MrMoo, he really cooked with this one. Already right off the bat, you can see we actually have textures. So I'm going to be honest here, I'm not exactly sure what the changes are compared to the last devlog, so I'm just going to kind of go over all of the things. The main thing is that we have textures now for all of the upgrade icons and for the ability icons. So we can see all of them here if we go ahead and upgrade these. Here are the efficient creation. These upgrades increase the amount of lipids you get from eating all of your food. We can see we have basic knowledge, advanced, and expert knowledge. Each of these is looking very nice. The pickaxes we just left as normal because that's creating tools, and this is creating armor. And we did move around the enchantments a little bit. So not only are the icons looking really cool, but there is now a requirement for, or a prerequisite that you have expert knowledge unlocked and the 5th level of enchantment knowledge before unlocking the final enchantment knowledge number 6. So some of the enchantments are going to be gated by more upgrade points. So far, all these icons are looking awesome, but it gets even better when we open up the creation menu. So I'm going to hit the first ability key here and check this out. As I said, MrMoo did the texture for this, and it looks really awesome, okay? It's no longer just an ugly blue box. We're going with a notebook design because Momo has to keep track of things. She has to really understand things in order to actually create them, and so that's what we're going for here. Over here, we see the amount of lipids that we have. We have a couple of quick slots, and we have a list of all of the items that we can create. Everything is grayed out, and you can see that now. So we're going to unlock some things over here. If I come in here and grab some cooked mutton, if I eat this up, it will increase my lipids, so we can check here. The lipid count is going up. So let's take a look at the research table, and just so you know, the GUI has not been updated for this one yet, so it's still the ugly thing that I made. We have all of the tabs here. Each of these tabs, remember, unlock depending on the upgrades that you have learned. Before, it was just basic materials. However, I've expanded it to be a lot more useful. So there's a bunch of random materials here like flint, string, leather, paper, books, nautilus shells if you wanted those for some reason. And we can click on them, and again, here's the learn button. So you have to have this amount of the item in order to learn the recipe. Each one of these is different. Let's do coal, for example. So 64 of it. We click the learn button. You'll notice it says successfully learned coal, and it removed nothing from our inventory. That is because it is now a feature that if you're in creative mode, you don't actually have to have the items. Now we have the coal over in this section, and even better, if we hover over it, we can see the cost of the item. So before, I didn't have any indication of how much stuff costs. Now you can see it directly there. So if I just click on this, it does a little particle effect and it actually spits it out to the side. If we wanted to, we can open this back up, and if we click this slot, and then we select an item, we can now bind the coal to our quick slot. So those are what 2, 3, and 4 are bound to on my right side. They are quick slots. So I can hit the 2 key and it generates out a piece of coal and it spits it out just like Momo. All right, so we've unlocked all of the materials here, so all of these things can be created and all of these other random things. We have a whole section for blocks, and if you remember from the last devlog, there was only a few blocks. Now, however, there's a whole lot more. Let's just unlock all these real quick. And you may notice too that there's no indication that you have bought something. If you click it, it says you already know this recipe, but there's no visual indicator. That will get changed once we redo this GUI, which is coming soon. But now we have all of the blocks unlocked, so here's everything that you can purchase or create. We also have the option to, of course, learn all of the different types of tools. If we take a look at armor, we can also do totems of undying, so for 5 of those you can learn that. And the enchants as well. Again, these are all unlocked because we have the upgrade tree fully maxed out. Anyway, if we take a look here, we have this all fully maxed out, and we actually have a tab up here, and this is for all of the tools. If you remember before, there was an area to actually enchant your items, and that's exactly what this is able to do now. So this looks really awesome. You can tell what enchants are actually, well, you can tell where they're supposed to be. So there's 6 enchants that we could possibly put on this axe. If we don't have it, we can click create. You can see it does actually now take lipids. Before, it didn't actually do that. So we have a stone axe that we can now create, and we can create any of these items. Let's go ahead and unlock some of the enchants for this so we can see it. Now we have the 4 sliders. If you hover over each of the enchants, you can see how much it costs in order to enchant something. So for example, the unbreaking cost 1 extra lipid per level. We can also notice that I totally forgot to add the tooltip to the rest of the enchants. Does it work for? Yeah, I totally forgot those. But each of these does take a certain amount of lipids per level. So if we wanted to get a unbreaking 3, it's going to be the cost of the stone axe, which is 30, plus 3 times, in this case, 1. So 33 lipids, which is exactly what we saw here. There's our unbreaking 3 stone axe. If we also check here, we can give it a name. So if we wanted to give it the cool axe name, we can just hit create and it just pops it out with the custom name. One thing I did want to say as well is that with the armor, you can actually stack enchantments that aren't normally stackable. So blast protection and projectile protection can now be put on the same armor. I will make them super expensive to get these, but this is just kind of a nice little perk of creation. You can stack enchants that are not normally meant to be together. That may be a concern of someone getting too OP of armor, but you can only create up to diamond, so it's not like it's netherite. And there are a lot of other quirks that can do a lot of damage to things, so even with a super strong armor, it doesn't guarantee that you have safety. Also, you may think the totems are super powerful until you see the price. Alright, so there's one last thing that I want to talk about with this. Each and every one of these costs is completely configurable using a file. Let's take a look. So this is inside my config folder, and I have this BQL folder that gets generated. Inside of here is this file called creationshopdata.json. If I go ahead and open it, this is what it looks like. The first thing we have is the creation price table. Everything in here controls how many lipids it takes to create something. So for example, the oak log takes 5 lipids. If I change this to say 10, then if I hop back into Minecraft, I run the /reload, and then I run the /bqlconfig reload command. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the oak log, the cost is now displaying as 10. This is configurable for every single item that you can create. All of the prices are easily changed with a single file. Besides the creation price, we also have the creation enchant price, and this corresponds to how much each level of the enchantment costs. So for example, Unbreaking, we saw that cost 1 level or 1 lipid per level. You can come in here to change it to whatever you want. So here's Unbreaking. We could change it to 10 lipids per level if you wanted. Below that, we have the creation item learn cost table, and this controls how many items you need to actually learn it. So for example, Netherrack, if we take a look at the research table inside of blocks, Netherrack takes 64. If we go ahead and change this to say 128, do a config reload, and there we go. Now it takes 128 netherrack in order to learn that. This is one of the really cool perks of being able to switch everything to a library mod, is that now I can do cool stuff like that and make it really customizable to all of you guys. But with that, that's the last thing of the creation quirk. So mostly a cosmetic overhaul, but there's been a lot of addition to the things that you can actually do. So it's a very viable quirk now. Up next, we're going to talk about Smokescreen. If you remember, Smokescreen was the first quirk that I ever added, and it got a little bit of a change too, but it's mostly cosmetic for this one. So starting off, as soon as I give myself the power, you can already see we have icons for it. Not only that, we have a title icon. So this is a 32 by 32 icon for Smokescreen. Let me know down in the comments if you guys like this higher quality for a title icon. Everything else is 16 by 16, but kind of wanted to try doing a higher resolution for this. But yeah, this one was made by Kriftik, another one of my texturers. He did a pretty good job. And then we have a bunch of the actual ability icons down here, and all of them have cool textures. So here are what the upgrade icons look like now. As I said, there was no functional change really to this. It's mostly just adding in cool icons for everything. So we have the smoke cloud, smoke aura, the production levels, the capacity levels are little smoke tanks, and we have the different smoke streams and all these different things. So they did a really good job on these icons. And now that I think about it, there was actually one functional change to this. If I go into survival mode, you can see the husk is targeting me, but if I actually use my smoke ability here, he will stop chasing after me. So before, the invisibility didn't actually stop the mobs from targeting you. However, now it actually does. So you can see he stops there for a bit, and unfortunately, I ran out of stamina. Get away from me! So this just adds a little more usability in non-multiplayer situations, so you can actually stun mobs essentially and get away from them nice. But Smokescreen was the one quirk where I didn't actually change too much of it, so that's all I have for that one. And I guess that means the next quirk I'm going to talk about is the brand new quirk. If you're in my Discord, link in the description by the way, you would have seen a lot of the teasers related to potentially this quirk, and there was a lot of guesses as to what it was going to be. However, I don't think anyone actually guessed this one, so time to reveal it. The brand new quirk is Permeation. Yes, Lemillion's quirk, Permeation, is now inside of my add-on, and it's actually pretty cool and honestly one of my favorites so far. This ability does not have any icons yet, so don't get excited for that, but a lot of the functions, if not all of the functions, are pretty much done, so let's take a look. Here we go, Permeation. Your body has the ability to change its molecular density. This is a difficult quirk to use, but with training can become one of the most powerful abilities. That's not a lie, this can be very overpowered. The first thing you start off with is full permeation. So you're going to lack the control of the phasing, and your only option is to just full body phase, which includes your eyes and lungs. So if you remember from the anime, Lemillion can't actually breathe when he's phasing. He also cannot see. So I made sure that I actually captured that using this first ability. To activate it, you have to hold it down. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And there we go. We fall. If I let go of the ability, we can see I automatically rise back up to the surface. So that was a little hard to see. Let me go into first person for this because we do go blind, remember? But again, hold the ability, we phase down, and then we let go and we go back up. If I was in survival mode here, we would actually see the suffocation effect. So if I go down, we have the actual air bubbles, and they don't return until we're up on the surface. So what is the point of this ability, you say? Well, it's mostly just to train up your stamina, but you can also use it to kind of explore caves down below. So we did see a little bit of a cave or a room down there, so let's see if we can try to fall into it. Looks like it's just over here, so I just hold the ability, and there we go. So the way the full body works is when you release it, the natural buoyancy tries to get you to the closest air pocket. So if I were to do it here and then let go, I would pop up in this room here. If I can move over to the side a little bit and let go, and there we go. We actually were able to travel up the ceiling, or up the walls rather. Also, if you noticed, you do get a little bit of a boost in jumping. So if I think it's a 2-block jump. Nope, we fell down to the basement. So it does give you a little bit of a leap, so you can kind of get up a little higher, so you can use it as a jumping mechanic. But mostly it's just to train up your stamina. Once you have enough stamina points and get enough upgrade points, you're going to be able to use this sync ability. I definitely have to fix this description, but let me go ahead and buy it for 3 upgrade points. And right away, it unlocks the feet depth ability, which is how far you can sink. All right, so now on the right side, we have a new ability, and it's assigned to 5 for me. So if I actually hold 5, we'll see I sink down into the floor. We only have feet depth unlocked. So that's why only my feet go down into the ground. When I'm like this, I do get a little bit of a speed boost because it's trying to take advantage of the buoyancy of the floor to give Lemillion just a little quick boost. And in order to rise back up, we just have to hit the 5 ability again. And when we do this, it actually also gives us a little boost. So I'll hit 5, and there we go. We fly up a little bit into the air. Now this should be enough to get up 2 blocks. So if I go back down here and then hit it, there we go. We can now jump up 2 blocks, which is pretty cool. Also, while doing this, we do get a step assist, so you can kind of glide over blocks without being impeded by the collision of the block. Pretty cool by itself, but we can actually increase the depth that we go. Go ahead and grab the leg depth here. Buying this upgrade will allow us to hold the sink ability for longer, so we can actually sink down more. So here we go. We can sink all the way up to our legs. This does give you a slightly faster speed boost, I believe. That actually might not be true. I don't remember if I did that. But even if it doesn't, it's still pretty fun to run around like this. Again, if we hit the 5 key to release, we'll just go rise back up. And what's cool about this is that you can actually release it whenever you want. So if I hold and then just release, I can actually control the exact level of sinking that I do. So I don't have to just do all the way to my waist here. I can just do like a little bit of my feet. I can just do the very tops of my toes, or I can go all the way down to the knee. You may be thinking, what's the point of that besides cosmetic? As I sink down, you'll see that the size of my hitbox actually changes with it. This means while you're in this shorter state, you're going to be harder to hit from other players and mobs. This also returns back to normal, of course, when you pop up, and it works with the variable slide. So you can slide to any sink level you want. Your hitbox is always going to match you. Let's unlock the neck depth, which is one of the funniest ones, and let's sink down all the way up to our neck. There we go. We're just a head in the ground. This one's really awesome because, again, your hitbox is only just your head. You're going to be pretty difficult to hit. You can fit into 1-block gaps if you wanted to, so I could just crawl in here and do some hiding inside of the wall. One thing I forgot to say, actually, too, is that while in this permeating form, you're not actually able to hold any items. The reason for this is that your hands are currently being permeated. so it kind of makes sense that you can't be holding on to something while halfway in the ground. This also applies to your armor. So if I hold down the sink ability, depending on how far I sink, that's what armor is going to just come off into your inventory. You're not allowed to wear any of the armor pieces while that body part is permeating. So like if I just do my feet, my boots automatically come off. If I go down to my knees here and my chest, it takes those off specifically. So I really like that feature too, because you are pretty powerful being able to shrink down and permeate, and this kind of helps prevent the, becoming invincible while wearing some good armor. This also works with the full body permeation as well. So you can see I actually took off my armor when I did that. If I do it again, my armor comes back off into my inventory. You're not going to be able to permeate with anything in your hands or anything on your body. We do plan on adding in a suit that allows you to permeate while wearing it. That's just going to come later. All right, let's buy the last level, which is the full depth, and this does exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to go completely into the ground. Now, the cool thing about this one is that I wanted it to be a little more special than just kind of going into the ground. So when you actually sink to the full depth, it automatically switches your camera's perspective to third person. So that's why you can still see yourself here, and you can see the little particle trails of you moving underneath the ground, and you can pop up right over here. The reason I did that is because if you were in first person and your head is underneath the ground, well, we've seen that with full body. You can't really see anything. And I wanted to give it a little more usability, so that's why it automatically throws you into third person when you're all the way down in the ground. That allows you to do some cool moves where you can sneak up behind an enemy and then just pop up behind them and do some damage. I thought that was a cool feature, but if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments. Once you get the full depth, you're going to be able to unlock intangibility. This one is kind of like phasing for speedsters. If you hold it, you just become intangible. You can walk through walls. You can't go up or down surfaces. Actually, wait, can you go up surfaces? Oh, you can actually go up surfaces, okay. But you can't go down surfaces. If I summon a husk and go into survival mode, if I hold the intangibility, I'm not actually going to take any damage here, but it does use up my stamina, and I'm not allowed to do damage in this form. So you can become intangible where nothing can hit you, but you can't hit anything else. In the future, I do plan on adding in a cooldown for the intangibility, so you can't just, turn it, leave it on, then turn it off, and then turn it back on again. This is going to be similar to the full bodies, where you can hold it, and then once you let it go, it has a cooldown. I just didn't do it for this one because I kind of forgot is all. And the last upgrade for permeation is this Permeation Punch. And this is the first actual fighting ability, and it allows you to do damage to any sort of mob or entity, and that damage will bypass armor. So if I put in here a test dummy and give it its full armor, if I hit it normally, I'm only going to do 0.2 damage. However, if I toggle on my Permeation Punch and then hit, you can see I'm doing the full damage that I do as if you weren't wearing armor. This is an upgrade that kind of shows the full control of your permeation, so you're able to control it just enough to slip past all of their defenses and do some actual real damage instead of this reduced damage. While the Permeation Punch is active, you're not allowed to actually hold a weapon, so this isn't going to allow you to stack damage. So it's only going to be your physical strength that does the direct damage. You may think that's annoying, but you have to remember you are able to upgrade your base stats no matter what quirk you have. For example, if we go into the base quirk upgrade tree, we actually have a strength upgrade and we can unlock that. And that actually reminds me, we have icons for this one too. But before I check those out, let me just do this. You can see we're now doing the 1.2 damage, so you can upgrade your strength a little bit and make this Permeation Punch even stronger. And these abilities all use stamina, it's just not going down right now because I am currently in creative mode. And before I show you the new upgrade icons of the base quirk, let me talk about a few of the things that quirk factor does to affect the Permeation Quirk. The quirk factor is one of the few things left that's still a scoreboard, but if I increase it to 2 here and then activate just my feet sync ability, you'll see that I'm actually moving a lot faster. This is one of the things that quirk factor will affect, the speed of your permeation. It also affects your Permeation Punch, so you do a little bit more damage. I think it's a 1-to-1 for each quirk factor point that you have. So my quirk factor is 2, so it's doing 2 extra damage per punch. Okay, but that's all for the Permeation Quirk, I believe. It's so far my favorite, like I said. I just love the fact that you can zoom underneath the ground here, pop back up, hit your enemies, use the intangibility to quick get away. I think it so far does a good job at capturing Lemillion's quirk, but also kind of the way he uses it. So if you have suggestions, let me know down below or join my Discord. Okay, let's talk about the base quirk upgrades here, because I did say we have upgrade icons. Kriftik went and made all of the upgrades for this, so let me just go ahead and upgrade them all quick. Here we are, they are fully upgraded. We have nice little health icons, strength icons, armor, speed, and here are all of the stamina training icons as well. So they did a really good job with this one, and I'm really excited that these actually have icons instead of the normal random Minecraft textures. Well done to both of the texture artists on this update. With that, we are over halfway done with the quirk changes, so let me talk about that announcement that I brought up earlier in the video. And that announcement is that the alpha test is going to be starting for the add-on. In order to become a member of the alpha test and get really early access to play on a server with everyone else, you will have to be a channel member of any tier in order to join. You will also have to be in my Discord as well, because that's how you're going to get access to everything. This is just an alpha test, so it's mostly for trying to find all of the bugs that are inside of the thing, but I thought it'd be fun to give the channel members a little something extra. So if you want to become an alpha tester, you just have to become a channel member before the official alpha test starts, and I'll leave down in the description below whether or not it has started yet, so then you know whether or not you will make it in. The reason I'm holding the alpha test behind a paywall essentially is, one, because there's going to be a lot of people who want to try it, and I need to narrow it down some way, but also I would like to get to the point where I can actually pay my texturers to do things. Right now they're all volunteer, and I would like to give them something, it's just I can't do that at this time. But your memberships would help out and hopefully get me to that point in the future. And the alpha test is just a perk. You will still get access to the mod when it comes out in the beta when we hit that 10,000 subscriber goal, so go ahead and make sure you're subscribed. Alright, the selling out is complete. On to the next one. The next quirk we'll be looking at is Decay. I'm actually going to head away from this nice museum into a different area so I can do a little bit of destruction. This dam should do nicely. Decay is one of the quirks that has gotten a lot of change to it functionally. Taking a look at the upgrade tree, there's a little bit more here and it is a little bit reorganized. Similar to the last version, the Decay still has this unstable decay and these decay side effects. The unstable decay slowly decays your armor and anything in your hands randomly. So just there we saw that the diamond boots actually went down a little bit, and that really hasn't changed from the last version. But what has changed are the environment decay types. Not only have I changed the way that they function, I've also changed the types themselves. So the first thing we have is the environment decay for all, which is considered, well, everything. It's assigned to the 2 key, so if we hold the 2 key here, it slowly decays over time. And you can see it goes about that far before it stops, and our instability bar on the right, which is the right bar, that has gone up quite a bit. So I did a little change to the system that determines what blocks you can decay. I call it decay intensity, and the level of intensity determines exactly what blocks you can break. Level 0, or the level we're start at, is shovel and hand breakable blocks. So that's why we can do the dirt, because you can mine it with a shovel, so we can decay it away. Level 1 would be switching to axe level, which means we would be able to decay wood of all types. Level 2 intensity is anything you can break with a stone pickaxe. Level 3 intensity is anything you can break with an iron pickaxe. And the final level of intensity is anything you can break with a diamond pickaxe. What determines the intensity is actually your quirk factor, so the more that your quirk factor goes up, the higher level blocks you can break. So let me increase my quirk factor to 1, and this should allow me to decay blocks like wood and dirt. You can also see it did increase the speed of the decay as well. It didn't actually do spruce leaves, which is interesting. I think I might have just forgotten to do that, potentially. And that was the environment decay all, but we can actually upgrade it to do environment decay layer. What this will do is allow you to do a single layer of decay. The icons here, by the way, are not finished, obviously, and they actually don't even correspond correctly. They're in the process of being changed right now, and they should be ready for the alpha test. But if we switch it to layered type here, and now we use the decay, we can actually see this target block resists our decay. So let's actually increase our quirk factor to level 2 here, and now we should be able to mine stone or break it away. And there we go. We can see it now goes through and mines the stone level, and it does a single layer at a time. It also got a lot faster because our quirk factor has gone up. The next environment type is now called quarry. This one got its name because of the way that it sort of looks like a quarry when it mines down. So let me come over here. We'll just do this area right here. And did I select this? I did. All right, so quarry. If we activate decay here, it does sort of a almost cubicle shape, and it kind of makes these stairs here as well come down. These stairs are kind of why I gave it the quarry name, because you can kind of come down here and it makes some nice pattern. I guess it could be a reverse pyramid, I guess. I wasn't sure what to exactly call it, but already a better pattern than what I had before. The next environment type is fissure, and this one's a pretty fun one. If we switch to it here, what it does is cracks open a fissure in the ground, and the idea is that mobs or people fall into it. So if I look down at the ground and hold the ability, we can see it opens up a fissure in the ground, and I actually fell in because I used it a little too close to myself. If I look here at the ground and do this, they all take some damage, and they also take decay damage as well. Before, these environment decays didn't actually do any damage when they touched mobs, essentially. Now it will actually damage them and give them the decay effect. And if you don't remember from the last video, the way the decay effect works is that it will do damage directly to you unless you are wearing some armor. If you're wearing any sort of armor, that armor will slowly start to decay in place, and once all of that breaks, you will actually start taking damage. And that is why the pigs are getting affected, because they are not wearing any armor. So when we hit them with it, they get the essentially a wither, but it's a little stronger than that. The next one is the vein type, and this one is a lot more complex because it allows you to decay specific types of blocks only. So for example, if I'm looking at the stone, we can see it's connected to the dirt here, but if I activate the decay on the stone, it's only going to decay that stone. That's the same for anything else. If I come up to this tree here, it does the leaves. If I do the wood here, it only grabs the wood. This is supposed to be kind of a replicated vein miner ability, allowing you to decay certain blocks and give you some more versatility when it comes to using your ability. If you did want to use it for mining though, I would recommend getting the mining control upgrade. This, however, is locked until you get this second path over here. So let's go ahead and get that, starting with the rot wave. The rot wave is the third ability, and it allows you to send a wave of rot out from your hand. So if I stand here and hold the ability, we can see it sends out an effect. People in my Discord did call this the Dorito of Death. Essentially, all living things inside of this radius or this cone here will get destroyed. So that's why all the trees are missing. If there was any animals like these chickens in there, they would get the decay effect as well. So we can do that there. There's the chicken has the effect and did end up not making it. This has been significantly improved from the last version because now it actually will grab all of the trees as well as extending pretty far like this. The reason it is going so far, by the way, is because my quirk factor is set to 3 right now, which is a very long range. So we can just start from here and actually fire it and see how far it goes down this mountain. There we go. It traveled down the mountain here and affected everything over there. It's very satisfying to use. I really like it. After the rot wave, there is the control training, which just, again, slows down your instability and your random decay. And we can get the mining control upgrade now. As I was saying before, this is going to benefit you pretty well for mining. This is a specific upgrade for the vein mode, which means you're able to control the decay to the point where it actually drops the blocks. So if I'm using it on all of this cobblestone, you can see it's actually dropping all of the cobblestone. And now we can actually use this to mine a whole bunch of stuff. Because we are so high level too, we don't have to too much worry about our decay increasing or the instability increasing. So there we go. It now reveals the iron ore, where before it would just destroy it. Now it just kind of leaves it and drops everything else on the floor. I just did that to try to give a little more utility to this because decaying is just kind of destruction, so giving it some useful types of destruction I thought was a good idea. The last upgrade here is the Master Control, which just disables the unstable decay, so you no longer will just decay things in your hand or when you're wearing armor. The fourth ability that we have hasn't really changed much, but it's still the Decaying Touch. When active, you actually give the target a level of decay, and so this one, it's a pretty intense decay, doing 6 damage if they're not wearing any armor. The level of damage that this does scale with the quirk factor, which is why it's so high right now, because I'm at a quirk factor of 3. The final ability is a brand new ability, and it's called Decay Grasp. You can kind of think of this ability as a grab and strangle sort of a deal. So he's walking around, you see, if I hold the 5 key, my hand comes out and I'm considered grasping him, and he has decay as long as I do that. While this is active, neither I nor this guy can move. However, he can still break out of it if they do enough damage to the player doing the holding. For example, if I was in here in survival mode and was close enough for him to hit me, he can actually break out of it just like he did. In this case, though, he wasn't able to completely stop it because, again, without armor, the decay is really going to destroy your health. All right, those are primarily all of the changes to Decay, but I'd say let's real quick crank up our quirk factor and see how much damage we can do to this. Let's set our quirk factor up to 10 here, and let's go ahead and let's just select Decay All. I think we'll just choose the middle of the dam here and see what happens when we use the ability. Let's maybe up this a little bit to level 20 to see if we can finish off the rest of it. It's so satisfying to watch it go. Let's switch it to quarry mode and see if this gets rid of the rest of it. Oh yeah, that did a lot. Okay, well, Minecraft water isn't as interesting as I thought it was going to be, but you can still do quite a bit of damage to bases and things. I know this isn't possible, but let's set it to a quirk factor of 100 just to see what it looks like. All right, this looks like a good test subject. Let's just do it here and... Let's real quick actually use the quarry at this full power to just see what it does. Okay, wait, I haven't tried this ever before and it might crash the game. But what happens if I set a quirk factor of 1000 in the middle of this city? Uh-oh. Okay, so that wasn't exactly as bad as I thought it was going to be. On to the next quirk, though. The final quirk I'm going to be going over today is Powerstock. And to test this one out, I'm actually going to go over to this arena area. This Broville map, by the way, is really awesome. I'll leave the link to it in the description. So, what has changed with Powerstock? There's a lot. The first ability that we have is called the Fist Smash ability. This and many other ones are actually charge up abilities, meaning you have to hold them in order to do more damage. So if I activate this, right away we see there is a cool charging animation now, thanks to MrMoo. And once it's fully charged, there are a lot of particle effects, which I thought I got rid of the fire, but I guess not. If we let go of this, we do a little bit of damage. So right away, a full charge does about 6 damage. Come to think of it, that is kind of a lot for a first power, especially considering our stored power is already pretty small. Like I hinted to before, I actually store the stored power inside of the chest value for the body system. So if I retrieve it now, we'll see that it is at 137 stored power. This power just goes up randomly over time, so it'll take you some time in order to actually get to super powerful levels. But here at the start, it's already pretty strong. It's a little too strong. I do need to go through and edit that a bit, but let's take a look at the upgrade tree for it. This has changed a little bit. I don't even think I had an upgrade tree last time. Down on the bottom here, we have these passive growth upgrades. These ones cost a lot, but what they do is increase the growth rate of the stored stockpile power you have. If I go ahead and check the stored power, it's going up a lot faster than it was. These upgrades are really expensive to get, but they're essential to getting to super high levels of power, because with Powerstock, the more power you have, the stronger your abilities are. I did put a lot of work into trying to fix the scaling for all of the abilities in relation to the power, but it still needs a little bit of work, if I'm being honest. Who would have thought it would be difficult to scale infinite power? Anyway, we can look at some of the other upgrades. So here's that Fist Smash, and there's a really cool icon by MrMoo, and we have a few other abilities. One of them is the Power Leap, so let's actually unlock that one. There's the ability icon for that one, and to use it, we have to hold the 4th ability. Doing this will charge up the animation on the leg, and depending in the direction you're looking is where you're going to leap. So if we look up into the air, we jump into the air just like that. If we hold it and go over here, we'll jump in this direction as well. So it's just a simple way to access the power in your leg. There is a little bit of a strange issue where some of the animations aren't correctly synced. I'll definitely fix that for the next update. But the jumping ability is to kind of emulate how All Might and Deku would jump around with their powers. The next upgrade we can talk about is, let's do the full cowl, because that's a good one. The texture has changed, and also the charge up animation has changed a bit too. Again, this was all thanks to MrMoo. So if I hold to activate full cowling, it has a better animation, and it also just looks better too, and matches the regular Deku. Just do it one more time because it's so nice. While in this form, you get a little bit of a speed boost, strength boost, all sorts of stuff. So we can hold shift and scroll up to increase the percentage of power that we're using. And remember, this is percentage of the stored power. In this case, we have 1700 stored power, and we're using 100% of it. This is about what our speed is. Our jump doesn't get changed, and I think we do... Yeah, we do 3.1 damage with it active. We also have all of the strength upgrades here, so that's why it's doing a little bit more damage than normal. So I think without the strength upgrade, we'd be doing 2 damage per hit. So that's pretty cool. The next one is the St. Louis Smash. And this one in particular is to replicate Deku's kick when he's making a bunch of wind. So if I hold this down, it's going to charge up my leg again. The percentages are a little strange for this one, but if we let go, it shoots off a wind wall right there. It is down towards the ground because that's where our foot is. If we look up a little higher, once it's done cooling down, we're going to be able to kick this in the air a bit. So let's hit it there, and there it goes. So this one doesn't do any damage, but it does do knockback to entities. So if we look over here at this sheep and kick, then the sheep gets knocked back just a little bit. It's not only used for knockback, but you can use it to extinguish fire, and you can actually use it to destroy ice blocks. If you've seen the anime or read the manga, you'll know exactly why I want the wind to destroy ice. Maybe that's a teaser for what's coming next. Yeah, but that's pretty much what this ability does. It's just to give a little kick in Air Force. I'll show you what happens when we get to a stronger power level, but that's going to wait until after the other abilities are done. Speaking of which, let's get the next one, which is Air Force. This is our ranged ability, and this is what Deku does when he flicks his fingers and shoots out the little air currents. In order to activate this ability, you hold the 5 key, and then it puts your arm down like this, and you're able to right-click in order to use the Air Force. So if I right-click it now, not too much has happened. Also, for some reason, it's supposed to render on the arm, but it's rendering on the foot. So just pretend that that animation is in the correct spot. But yeah, why is this not doing anything? If we get a little close, it doesn't seem to do any damage, and it just kind of seems lame. Well, that's because your power isn't really charged up. If you don't have any stored power, then flicking your finger in the air isn't actually going to do anything, which is exactly why it doesn't do anything right now. So in order to get that stronger, we are going to have to increase our power level. Since I don't want to wait, I'm just going to cheat and make it as high as, not as high as it can go, because it can go pretty high, but we'll set it to a reasonable 500,000. Now all of our abilities should be supercharged. First, we'll test the full cowling. Already right off the bat, we have quite a big speed boost, and we're doing 27 damage a hit with this much stored energy. That may be too much. We'll balance that in the future. But if I hold shift and scroll down, we can see we are actually in the severe stage. And if I scroll down a little bit down to safe, we're no longer going to take damage. So this mechanic is the same as the previous video, where if you have too much of your ability active, you are going to take damage. So in this full cowling state, we actually have this Powerstock overuse when we are over a certain threshold. While you have this overuse effect, it is slowly damaging all of your body parts. And so that's why all of my arms and legs just immediately broke there. If I use the body debug command to see the statuses, you can see every body part is equally getting damaged as I use full cowling. And because I was using at such a high level, we got up to 88 damage on all of our body parts, which happened to break about everything. That just shows the importance of keeping your power levels down within the normal or acceptable ranges. It looks like at this point we can get up to 12% of our power. And if you remember, the amount of power that you can use is based on your stamina. So if I check out my statistics here, I have 404 stamina as my max, and so that is why I'm able to only use 12%. Again, some of these values will probably get tweaked, especially after redoing some of the multiplayer tests. But for now, the mechanics are all the same. It's just the ranges that need to be adjusted. Let's actually take a look here at the second ability, the Fist Smash, and let's see how much damage it does. We can hold this to charge it up, and you can immediately see we're already going well into the overuse. And if we let this go, it did a lot of damage, 40 damage, and did a radius of 11, which it seems like that radius was a lie. But we did accidentally destroy our arm in the process. Depending on the level of overuse that you reach and the amount of power that you have, that's going to determine how much damage it actually does to the body. And so it's just the case that defaulting at that level is enough to destroy your arm. Even though we lost an arm, it does allow me to show you a feature that even with the missing arm, you're still able to use the second ability, and it automatically switches the animation to the correct arm and uses it. You may have noticed also in the bottom right that a lot of our abilities are no longer available. That is because they're using the brand new body conditions that I added to prevent certain powers from activating depending on if you are missing the limbs. So without any arms, we're not allowed to do any punch abilities or any of the finger flicking. We can, however, use the leaping, and so let's charge this up to max and see how high we go. Yeah, that's pretty high. We did lose our leg again because it's too much power, but we can do like 12%, we can kind of go high up. 27, that was overused, and now we have no body parts at all. But we can still go full cowling. All right, let's see now how the air is affected by the higher level. So if we use the air flick and then right click to fire, you can see there's a lot bigger of effect. So if we do that again into the air, it shoots off a big ring of smoke. If we hit the sheep with this, I'm pretty sure it's a lot of knockback. Yeah, that's quite a bit of knockback, and it does about 5 hearts of damage. Or 5 damage, which is 2.5 hearts. The range on this guy and, of course, the strength will scale with the Powerstock stored value, so it can end up going pretty far. I forgot this too, but if you actually wear an elytra when you're activating the Air Force Flick ability, it works as a propulsion. So if I'm flying here and hold it out and right-click, it actually uses the air current to boost me out, and it gives me a little cool particle effect behind me as well. So with this, you will no longer have to pay for fireworks. And it's pretty fun to use too. Let's now check out the leg ability. So we're gonna hold the 1 key to charge it up. Again, it charged up the leg, and we're already in the overuse, but we're gonna use it at full capacity here. Let me look up and fire. Okay, that was definitely a huge, a huge wall. All of the sheep ended up here. And it looks like it also destroys all of the leaves. I forgot it does that. And it sent all of the animals flying. Let's try that again. Oh, we did lose that. And it's loading. I don't know why these animations are loading on random parts of the body. I think I got to fix that. But if we let go here, there it goes. The big wall of wind sending the pigs up here. If they weren't blocked by the arena here, they probably would have went flying. So yeah, I tried to do my best to capture some of Deku's moves, and I think I did a good job on some of them at least, but you can let me know how well I did. It's definitely really fun to play with. All right, the last ability of Powerstock is the Power Smash, and this one is really, it's really overpowered. If we hold it up once again, it has a little particle effect just for dramatic effect. It's doing some loud noises, and I let this go. Yeah. So we did lose my arm once again because of the overuse, and we can see it did a lot of damage to the actual world, as well as 36 damage in range. So it does explosion and range damage. It's very costly for your limbs, as you can see. But if you do it in smaller doses, it's not as bad, and it shoots out a little more like that. So it won't actually destroy too many of the blocks unless you charge it up to a super strong level. And I think it's like 50,000 stored power potentially that it uses to actually cause damage like this, but that could change in the future. There was a lot that went into this in the back end, but there's one thing in particular that I want to point out. So before I talked about dynamic configs, and this is an example where I actually used them. If I go back into my config folder into the BQL, there's this thing called dynamic configs. So this is what the dynamic configs file looks like. It's a place that mod developers can use to store all of the configurable values for their quirks without using any fancy Java stuff. In this case, I'm using it to store about 6 values for Powerstock, each that changes some of the functionality. For example, if I wanted to change how much power the player gets, I can change this 1 to any value that I want, and then run the reload command. If you're trying to develop your own quirks, you can easily add in your own config files, and here's how you do it. You just create an array of all of the values you want and the numeric values that are assigned to them. So in this case, I have these 6 different configurable values for Powerstock, and I assign them their default values. And then you have another array that corresponds to the same key with a description of what it does. So for the Powerstock growth, for example, I just say that it's the amount that the Powerstock growth ability will increase the stored power per activation. Then once you have both of these defined, you can just put into the server events.loaded event this config.generate config template. You pass in your ID, and you just pass in the 2 arrays that you've created. I know this doesn't really apply to too many people, but for people who are going to be making their own quirks, it's really good to show, because it allows you to have configurable values that people can change without any of the hassle. And that's pretty much it for all of the changes that I've made. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and sorry that it took so long to get to this point, but hopefully now that I've done all of this rework, I should be able to pump out a lot more quirks in the future at a lot faster pace. If you like this video and you want to see this add-on get released on CurseForge, make sure you hit the subscribe. We gotta get to 10,000 subscribers in order for me to do anything, so just tell your friends. And if you have any questions or comments, either join my Discord link down below, or you can leave a comment. I'd like to once again thank all of my texturers for all their hard work so far. You guys are doing great, and I look forward to showing everyone what comes next in the add-on. Thanks for watching.